So as part of Reach's plan to hear about how different cultures and groups have different celebrations and what they do for them and the importance of them, we thought we'd just have this chat about Passover, which is actually coming up to the celebration very soon. I'm Belinda, the co-chair of the REACH Network in the UK, and I'm joined by three other people who I'll let introduce themselves so that we can start our discussion. Alan, maybe you could start.
Hello, I'm Alan Roshwalb. I am resident in Washington, D.C. in United States Public Affairs Division, and I'm glad to participate in this.
Great, thanks, Alan.
I'm Saskia. I'm a I'm a research executive in the media development department, and yeah, I'm a practicing Jew, so it'd be an interesting discussion.
Definitely. And Jay?
Hello, yeah, I'm Jess. I'm the executive assistant for the REACH Network, and I am a Jew. I don't practice a lot, but I still define myself as a Jew.
Okay, great. And I don't come from a Jewish background, so I'm here to learn. So I guess the first question is, what is Passover?
Who wants to start?
I was going to ask the same question.
Okay, I'll give you the formal background. Passover is the reflection. The Jewish tradition is that we reflect on the book of Exodus from the Old Testament, where it's the story of the release from Egypt of Israelite slaves that had wandered there over several hundred years. And in the Old Testament, it says you will actually recount this story to and teach your children, and you will for 7 days you will remove yourself from your normal existence and celebrate this and celebrate and remember the holiday of Passover. It is one of the 3 pilgrimage holidays in the Jewish tradition, where offerings would be made at the Holy Temple in ancient Israel, and people would come from many parts of the world, where the Jewish communities are, and provide offerings at the temple. And almost all our traditions either recount the Exodus, the story of the Exodus, or they talk about the performance of the rituals of the temple. And that is probably the most traditional explanation of it right now I can think of right now. Anybody have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was really good. Pretty much summed it all up. Yeah.
It's interesting you said it's a traditional explanation of it. Are there any like non-traditional explanations of it? I'm just intrigued.
That goes into the entire sociology of the Jewish people.
Okay.
I have studied for different groups the American Jewish experience, and to some degree outside the United States. We see ourselves as, the Jewish people see themselves as a religion, which it has a theology, as well as a culture. So people will say, I have a very strong belief, or I'm very strongly identify as being Jewish, but they'll have different degrees of belief in God and different levels of observance. The Jews are sometimes called the people of the book, and very often when you start looking at the book and Jewish texts, it's all about laws and rules. And people have accepted or disregarded rules over time, from ancient Israel to today. So there's different levels of observance, and also different explanations why you observe one versus others. And that's why I say traditional. There is a line that goes back to ancient Israel from around the turn of the Common Era, which talks about, here are the rules that were written down, were oral traditions, and they started writing them down, and those become the books of law that go beyond the explanation of the Bible itself. So that's why I sort of move from tradition. I say traditional because they're different customs and different interpretations. One last point: if you travel from country to country, and there are very few countries that have never had a Jewish presence, you will find that the Passover traditions, the Passover holiday, has been observed almost uniformly, with minor differences based upon the society which they live in. And I'm talking about going from United States, South America, all the way over to China, as well as Europe. So you find them, as well as in Africa, in variety areas of Africa.
Yeah.
If you want to go start talking about the reach of the Jewish community, it occurs through trading, historical trading. And so communities were established in far-flung reaches of the world.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you, Alan. And I've heard that there is another name that you use for Passover.
Yeah, it's Pesach. It's the traditional Hebrew word for Passover actually.
Pesach, or
Yeah,
Pesach.
Pesach.
So it has
Okay.
it's a ch at the end, and you
Yeah.
say it like a cha. So Pesach.
Pesach. Okay.
But yeah, we say Passover normally.
Okay. So I heard that it was 7 days of celebration. Like, when does it start?
So-
This Friday?
Yeah,
So,
it
okay.
is. Yeah, this Friday for 7 days. We usually celebrate the night before the actual day. And yeah, I wanted to add something like to the traditional way of celebrating. For example, for me and my family, we will celebrate all the most important holidays, but we won't do like traditional Seder, like traditional dinner. We won't do the prayers, but we will have a family dinner, just getting together and yeah, just being with family.
Okay. Okay. So it starts on Friday, which, for context, here in the UK, we call that Good Friday. So it always, I guess, always coincides with that. So it's that week, starting from Good Friday. Is that correct?
They're both based on lunar calendars, so they
Mhm.
moves in time, and yes, so that's why you would find a commonality.
Okay, but they're always around the same date.
Well, let's give a context. The Christian tradition has that the Last Supper was a Passover Seder, the traditional dinner that will be starting on Friday night. So that is probably the strongest connection between the two.
Yeah.
Oh, and just going one step backward, is that when I talked about the three pilgrimage holidays that we have in our tradition, those also align with the stories of the New Testament, the accounts in the New Testament of Jesus going to Jerusalem for the temple services themselves. So they intertwine. So that is why the calendar events occur so close to each other.
That makes sense. Thanks. So what happens in these 7 days?
So we have, as I think Jessica mentioned earlier, we have on the first 2 nights something called a Cedar Night, where you typically have get your family, your friends together, and you have like a big meal, and you follow the story which you have in a special book, and there's lots of food and there's drinks involved, and just little bits in the story that gets everyone involved. So that's happening Friday night and Saturday night. So that's something that I would do. I would go home for, have a big gathering with my family, some family friends, and then you basically follow there's certain foods that you're not allowed to eat during those 7 days. So it's typically foods that have, correct me if I'm wrong as well, it's stuff that has flour, wheat, gluten, and basically stuff that's been risen. So you're not allowed to eat bread, pasta, yeah, that kind of stuff that has like flour that's been risen. So you eat these things called matzo, which is like basically crackers, and all the other foods that you can eat that doesn't have flour, etc. And yeah, that's pretty much well, at least what I do in that time.
Just to explain that,
Yeah.
if you go back to the Old Testament, it talks about the Exodus. It says Moses and his brother Aaron tried to petition Pharaoh of ancient Egypt to release the Jews from their slavery and let them go back to the ancient land of Israel. And when that was finally allowed after 10 plagues, they were told you will have to leave immediately, and they did not have time for their bread to rise. And so the bread, they took their bread, they baked it as fast as they could, and they got this very flat piece of bread, which we call matzah. And so to observe that and to reflect on, and also to experience what our ancestors did, we eat the matzah for 7 days, and it literally says for 7 days you will eat this bread, and you will refrain from eating any bread or product. So we take it to different extremes, different people, and especially within the community. And so for 7 days we avoid things that could be bread or bread-like, things that would rise, and so that's why that is the matzah and the general observance. So it brings on its own type of food and culinary treats that we then eat, and you find different people have different interpretations, and of course then you have your societal changes. What was available in one community of the world for generations became sort of the custom, and what was available in other communities of the world become custom. And so that that is our differences. In generality, we eat very similar food. If you weren't a careful observer or knowledgeable about it, you'd probably say it all looks alike. And then we would sit there and say, oh, that is so different from my family, so different. Or the neighborhood that I grew up in. But in reality, it's very, very similar.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk more about the food, because I'm greedy. What are the kind of themes, and if it's not exactly the same in terms of the types of food that you would eat apart from the crackers?
So I think the first thing would be the matzo ball soup. For me, it's my favorite, and my grandma makes a great one, and I can't wait to eat it actually on Friday.
Chicken soup. Your mum's chicken soup, never, yeah, hands down, always a winner.
Yeah.
And the matzo ball is really just a dumpling that is produced by eggs and ground up matzah itself, the crackers, and some seasoning. If your grandmother does it right, there is rendered fat of either duck or chicken made in it, so it actually has a more robust flavor. We have many people in my family who are vegetarians, so my wife leaves that out. In fact, we no longer serve chicken soup because of the number of vegetarians that attend our Passover Seder.
There's also I also have something called latkes, which is basically, the only way I like to describe it is sort of similar to a hash brown. So it's like grated potato and onion, fried pretty much. And you also have that at another festival called Hanukkah, which is normally around like Christmas time, December. But yeah, it's a common thing also to have during Passover, because it's just potato and onion. If you can't have a lot of like bread and other carbs, then that's a common thing to have as well.
The Passover Seder, as we said, it's supposed to teach you about the Passover, the history, and the foods become part symbolism of the ritual that we do. So we start off with literally breaking bread, breaking the matzah, and then we sanctify the occasion by drinking wine. But then we had several foods that's supposed to reflect the hardness of life that was in as slaves in ancient Egypt. One was that people were put to work. So we have supposedly we were involved with constructing buildings, doing hard labor, and so we eat uh, a uh, a combination, it depends where you are, but of nuts, fruits, and wine, and it's ground up together and mashed together. And so it's supposed to look like mortar that you would put between bricks if you're building buildings. That was called chorosis. And it's actually very delicious, but you take an opportunity. It's the only time of the year we eat that. We dip several vegetables into salt water to remind us the sweat and toil that we have to do in that time. And then finally, since it was a bitter time, we're supposed to eat a bitter herb, once alone and once then dipped in the chorosis. And so again, to have something that stimulates your senses. My family uses horseradish root, and which is very strong. We like to say you can bring tears to your eyes and clear your sinuses, and which we consume. So those are part of the Seder service itself, again to remind us and to teach us. We have the youngest at the table actually recites 4 questions, or actually four observations, like why do we other nights we can have matzah, we can have crackers, we can have bread. Why can we only have bread? Why do we dip vegetables? Those types of questions to elicit a response from the adult to teach the children. So the whole thing starts off with a child doing, and then they have songs that are involved that we do that are supposed to again stimulate the children. They're counting games that are part of the service. If 1 was this, what if shouldn't we actually be counting to be 5? If it was 5, shouldn't we be counting to 50? If it was 50, counting to 500, and to go into the explanations. These are all things to both entertain the children and the adults. So the service itself, which is, it's a long meal, is there to engage us and to teach us and to pass on traditions from one generation to the next.
Yeah, that sounds really beautiful. And you said that this meal happens for like 2 of the nights. So
it happens Friday night. It'll also
Yeah.
happen Saturday night. There is an old tradition in Judaism that if you're within Israel, which is in the boundaries of ancient Israel, you only do it on one night. But if you live outside of Israel, there is an uncertainty of exactly when that day would occur because of time and travel in ancient times. So we do it 2 nights to make sure we don't miss it.
It's a good deal.
Yes, and it's a lot, but no, that's what we do.
And then what happens to the rest of the week?
It's just it's a low level holiday. So you're supposed to recount it because of, but it's just literally stated in the Old Testament, you'll do this for 7 days. Now, given that you don't know when it occurs outside of Israel, it's 8 days. Yeah, 8 days.
Okay.
And there is time for special prayers for the beginning and ending days, and separate types of prayers on the middle days. The reason you do that is that you were supposed to have the special offerings in the ancient temple, so that would occur on those days, and they're listed in the Old Testament. And so that's why it lasts that period of time, to reflect what was stated in the Bible.
Okay, that makes sense. So thinking about what you'll be doing this year, let's go through. Jess, what will you be doing this year for it?
So I will be going to my grandma in Paris, and we'll have a lovely dinner with my family there. Half of my family is from France. So this year I'm going there, and we'll have the dinner on Friday night.
Okay, great. Saskia, what about you?
Yeah, I'm also going home to my family home on Friday. So we're hosting for the first day, so we're going to have a couple of people around, and then on the Saturday night we're going to a family friends, and yeah, going to do the same thing, just with a few more people. I'm going to try and keep kosher for Passover, and going to try and not eat all the foods that you're not meant to for the week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Alan, what about you?
I'm at a different stage of life where my wife is the grandmother.
Great.
He's the grandfather. So my daughter lives 6-hour drive from Washington, D.C. So she's coming with herself, her husband, and her 2 children. And my son, who lives not far, but wants to stay in our house, will be coming with his 3 children. So we'll have 5 grandchildren, the ages of from 6 to 1. In fact, the 1-year-old will have his birthday on Sunday, so we'll have a little party for him, which is great because he gets his cousins. He'll be able to be with his cousins. So we have a very traditional home, like Saskia, and they'll be here for the entire time. So we're planning a lot of games. I'm glad if anybody wants to reach me during the week, good luck. My oldest grandson likes to take over my computers. So that's right. We're trying to look for lots of activities, and hopefully the weather will be very nice here, and
yeah,
run around outside and go to parks and playgrounds and so forth.
that would be nice.
We normally get together with about 30 people at our Passover Seder, friends, old friends and family. And with COVID, we are really just with very much our immediate family, which is my children and my brother.
Wow. Okay.
I
guess
think
sorry, no, go for it, Saskia.
I was just going to say, because it's such like a like you want to be, it's a typical thing to like be around family, friends, like a big like lots of people at the table. Yeah, especially during COVID, we did do a couple of nights that were via Zoom, which was very, very weird. Had everyone on Zoom, about 20, 30 people, however many, trying to like coordinate who's saying what, trying to coordinate eating at the same time. It was entertaining, but yeah, this will be quite nice to actually see people in person and all be around the same table.
Yeah, we tried to do the same, and with like the whole family, and a part of the family lives in Vancouver, others in Israel, some in France. So it was very difficult to coordinate, but very funny too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice that you can see people in person this year. To round off, I guess the question that I had in mind is, what can people who aren't from a Jewish background do to be particularly respectful during this time and even be part of celebration?
I guess food would be the main thing of being like respectful about, because there's obviously, if you're practicing and if you're not eating certain foods, then you kind of have to be aware of that. I remember going when I was in primary school, being sent into school with like packed lunches with like matzo sandwiches, and everyone would be like, "What are you eating? What is that?" And I don't mind explaining it and talking about it. It's just, yeah, I think it's just like spreading awareness, what we do, why we do what we do, or even taking part in some of the Seder nights. It's always quite fun to see people who aren't as familiar with the Jewish traditions just like getting involved, and it's it's entertaining because they don't know what's going on, and most of the time sometimes we don't even know what's going on. But yeah, it's just getting everyone involved. It's a fun holiday, I think.
Okay. Alan, Jess, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I would sit there and it is a joyous holiday. It is not exclusively for the Jewish community in the United States. Many, many Christian churches are having their own Passover celebrations, bringing up the Jewish traditions in the light of Christian thought, and so it's becoming more and more widespread in the United States that occurs. We've always had a mix of people at our seders between Jewish and non-Jewish, and
Mm.
we've had friends who've attended many, decades, and have been very upset for the last 2 years, including this year, that we're no longer, we have not included them. I would just suggest, if you have a Jewish colleague and you want to say something, just say, have a happy Passover, and may it be fun and joyous, and that is all that's necessary.
Great, thank you. I think we've come to the end of our time. I've certainly learned a lot, and I'm going to be trying to get an invite somewhere, so keep an eye out for that. But thank you so much for taking the time to be part of this session and educate more people about these kind of celebrations that we don't know about. And happy Passover to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
No
you.
worries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Have a happy Easter.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy Easter as well.
Yeah, happy Easter.